In the cold silence of a dying star, where civilizations crumbled under the weight of fear, one man stood apart, unshackled by terror, unbroken by power. His laughter echoed through the obsidian halls of a warship built to inspire dread, and in that laughter lay the seeds of change. What happens when an empire forged on fear meets someone who refuses to be afraid? The answer would rewrite the galaxy's fate. The planet burned silently under the crimson glow of a dying star. At the edge of a shattered city, a lone figure stood, clad in obsidian black armor that shimmered faintly under the fading light. The air smelled of ionized metal and scorched ozone, remnants of an orbital bombardment that lingered like a ghost over the ruins. The streets were littered with fragments of what was once a proud civilization, hollowed-out structures, smoldering debris, and the occasional scrawled graffiti left behind by defiant souls who refused to go quietly into the night. It all felt painfully familiar. Fear had always been the inevitable outcome of her conquests. Civilizations crumbled, species submitted, and entire planets whispered her name with dread long after she had moved on. It was a cycle as unbreakable as it was universal. Her sharp gaze narrowed as she scanned the prisoners kneeling before her, a collection of shackled refugees, diplomats, and fallen warriors, heads bowed low, trembling in anticipation of their fate. All except one. Among the captives stood a man, his hands casually tucked into the pockets of a torn, soot-streaked jacket. Lean but not frail, his posture was relaxed, his face streaked with dirt yet oddly calm. He regarded her with an expression she had never encountered from someone facing defeat, amusement. Her armored boots clanged against the scorched ground as she approached him, each step deliberate and measured. The assembled commanders flanking her stiffened, bracing for the inevitable execution. The man either had no fear or had lost his mind entirely. "Why aren't you afraid?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade honed to perfection. The man tilted his head slightly, glancing around as if to confirm she was speaking to him. Finally, he exhaled and nodded to himself. "Well, for starters, I've had worse Mondays." A tense silence followed. One of her commanders, a towering brute encased in jagged cybernetic armor, let out a guttural growl. "He mocks you, Supreme One. Shall I tear him apart?" The man raised a hand, his tone light but firm. Whoa, let's not be hasty here, big guy. You look like you work out, and I have exactly zero interest in becoming a smear on your resume." Her brow twitched. "You stand before the ruler of this dominion. You should be on your knees." He gave an exaggerated glance downward. "I don't know, kneeling isn't really my thing. Bad for the spine. I do yoga sometimes." A pulse of energy surged through the air as her gauntlet flickered with a deep violet glow. It wasn't a warning, it was instinct. This was the reflex of someone whose rule had never been questioned. Every sentient being in the galaxy feared her. But as the energy crackled, the man simply sighed. "Look," he said, rubbing the back of his neck, "I get it. You've got the whole galactic doom vibe going on. Very intimidating. 10 out of 10. But honestly..." He shrugged. "Fear is kind of overrated." One of the commanders took a step forward, fury evident in his stance. "Do you not understand your place, human?" The man scratched his chin thoughtfully. Let's see. I'm standing in a pile of rubble, surrounded by terrifying warriors, in front of someone who could probably atomize me with a frown. Yeah, I think I've got a pretty good grasp of my place." Her gauntlet clenched as something gnawed at her, a sensation she hadn't felt in eons. Not anger, not frustration, but curiosity. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a deadly whisper. "What is your name?" He gave her a two-fingered salute. "Captain Alex Carter. Pleasure to meet you. You are either the bravest or most foolish creature I have ever encountered, Captain Alex Carter." He smirked. "Why not both?" His boldness sent a ripple of disbelief through the commanders. There were rules to how these moments played out: fear, pleading, submission. No one had ever responded to her with sheer irreverence. She took a deep breath, considering her next move. A simple flick of her wrist, and he would be reduced to cosmic dust. She had executed generals, kings, and planetary leaders for far less. And yet, for the first time in centuries, she hesitated. "Take him to the flagship," she ordered finally, her tone even. "I will deal with him personally." A collective silence fell over the commanders. No one dared question her. Alex, however, whistled softly. "Personally, huh? You know, normally I'd appreciate a lady taking an interest in me, but something tells me this is going to be bad news." She turned sharply, her cape billowing behind her as she strode toward her ship. She ignored the lingering intrigue curling at the edges of her mind. The warship loomed ahead, an unholy testament to galactic dominance. Spanning nearly 20 kilometers in length, its hull gleamed obsidian black against the void, bristling with ion cannons, planet crackers, and enough firepower to make a sun reconsider its existence. It was a moving monument to terror, a place where prisoners disappeared into cold metal corridors and never returned. Which made it all the more concerning that Alex was currently whistling. His hands were bound in glowing restraints, an advanced alien technology that adapted to its prisoner's physiology, preventing escape by disrupting neural impulses responsible for fine motor control. In other words, really fancy handcuffs. And yet, despite being marched through a warship filled with some of the most feared warriors in the galaxy, Alex strolled along like he was on a casual tour. "Wow," he muttered, eyeing the walls lined with pulsating dark red circuitry. "You know, I've got to say, the whole malevolent overlord vibe is top tier. Dark brooding corridors, creepy ambient lighting, absolutely zero safety railings, classic." The towering warrior beside him, General Karev, growled low. "You mock the Supreme One's domain, human." Alex raised an eyebrow. No. I'm just saying, you guys could throw in a couple of plants, maybe some nice music. Seriously, the constant hum of impending doom is great and all, but have you considered a little jazz?" Karev's deep-set eyes twitched. "You are insufferable." Alex beamed. "Thank you. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all day." The general let out another guttural snarl but kept walking, leading him deeper into the warship. It wasn't long before they reached the central detention level, a vast chamber bathed in the eerie glow of containment fields, where prisoners from 100 conquered worlds sat in silence, heads bowed. That silence was immediately broken the moment Alex arrived. "Hey, look," a reptilian prisoner muttered, nudging a fellow detainee. "It's that human, the one who laughed at the Supreme One." "That can't be right," another whispered. "No one laughs at her and lives." Alex gave them a casual nod. "Hey, fellas. Nice place. I see they also forgot to add plants in here." None of them laughed. Tough crowd. Before he could make any further observations about the soul-crushing monotony of galactic prison design, Karev shoved him into an empty containment cell. The force field hummed to life, sealing him in with an almost satisfying sci-fi sound. "You will wait," Karev growled. "The Supreme One will summon you when she decides how to dispose of you." Alex shrugged. "Neat. Hope she's not keeping me waiting for dinner. I get cranky when I don't eat. Bad for morale." The general turned away, visibly grinding his teeth as he stormed out. Alex plopped down on the hard metal bench, stretching his arms. "Well, guess I should get comfortable then." He noticed something. A small black sphere hovered outside the containment field, its mechanical eye blinking with deep purple light. An AI probe. It floated softly, analyzing him. Alex leaned forward, tilting his head. "Well, aren't you just adorable?" The probe emitted a soft beep, as if offended. He grinned. "What's your name, buddy?" The probe didn't answer, but its optics flickered. Alex snapped his fingers. "I'm going to call you Beep Boop." The probe vibrated angrily. Oh, I hit a nerve, huh? He smirked. Fine, fine. What do the terrifying overlords actually call you? A robotic voice responded, monotone and precise. Designated Unit X-17, Overseer of Organic Detainees. Alex nodded sagely. See, that's the problem. No personality. Got to jazz it up. X-17 sounds like a fax machine. Beep boop it is. X-17 floated a little closer. You are unafraid. He shrugged. Nah, fear's exhausting. Ever try being terrified 24/7? It's a lot of work. Frankly, I prefer sarcasm. X-17 processed this, then, much to Alex's amusement, emitted an almost hesitant beep, a thoughtful beep, like it was considering something it had never considered before. Meanwhile, on the command deck, the Supreme One sat upon her throne of command, surrounded by displays of galactic conquests, intercepted transmissions, and real-time fleet movements. She had been attempting to strategize her next war campaign, but her mind refused to focus. Because of him. The human. The one who should have been cowering. Instead, he made jokes. Her fingers tapped against the obsidian armrest as her thoughts cycled through every possible explanation. What did he know that others did not? A voice broke her concentration. My Supreme One, Karev rumbled, stepping forward. The human is secured in the detention level. He remains irreverent. She exhaled slowly. Summon him. I will have my answers. Karev bowed deeply before departing. As she sat there, her fingers tightened ever so slightly. Because despite herself, she was curious. And curiosity was a dangerous thing. The interrogation chamber was designed for breaking wills, a vast, dimly lit space with walls lined with jagged, pulsating conduits feeding energy into the neural destabilizers embedded in the ceiling. The air carried a faint metallic hum, charged with the presence of untold horrors. Generals, rebels, even kings had entered this chamber with defiance and left as husks of their former selves. At the center of the room, a single chair sat beneath a flickering grav field, floating weightlessly just above the cold black floor. Alex was lounging in it, not trembling, not sweating, lounging. His arms were draped over the back of the seat, his boots propped up as if he were enjoying the galactic equivalent of a hammock. So, quick question, he said casually, staring up at the ceiling. Do all interrogation rooms in the Dominion come standard with this much mood lighting, or is this just the VIP package? From the shadows, the Supreme One stepped forward. She had been watching him for several minutes now, standing unseen behind the darkened projection field that separated the chamber from her observation deck. She had expected him to show fear, perhaps even resolve. But this irreverence, this utter refusal to take his predicament seriously, it made no sense. The only sound in the chamber was the steady hum of the energy restraints keeping him suspended. Her crimson gaze narrowed as she regarded him from a distance, calculating. You are an anomaly, human. Alex turned his head slightly, as if he were just now noticing her presence. Whoa, I didn't see you there. You should really get a bell or something. Maybe a cool villain theme song, something orchestral, heavy on the drums. You know, proper entrance music. Her fingers twitched. You misunderstand your position, she said, her voice as cool as tempered steel. You are within my domain, a prisoner aboard my warship. And yet you continue to treat this like an awkward first date. He grinned. Yeah, I get that a lot. Though, to be fair, most of my actual dates end up with less death threats and more awkward small talk about space taxes. She exhaled slowly. For centuries, she had encountered every form of resistance, desperate rebels, arrogant warlords, trembling diplomats. But this human, he was something else entirely. An enigma wrapped in sarcasm and a blatant disregard for self-preservation. She stepped closer, her gaze piercing. Do you believe I will not harm you? Alex arched an eyebrow. Oh, I'm pretty sure you could turn me into a fine red mist with a wave of your hand. He leaned back again. But that's not really the point, is it? She studied him, her mind running through 1,000 possible meanings behind his words. Then what is the point? He shrugged. Fear's just a tool. It works until it doesn't. You've got an empire built on making people afraid of you. But that only lasts until someone chooses not to be. Her eyes flashed. You believe you are that someone? He gave a lopsided grin. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an idiot who talks too much. She didn't reply immediately. Instead, she turned slightly, tapping a panel on the chamber's wall. A shimmering energy field flickered into existence, revealing a holographic projection of a burning planet. Its skies were thick with ashen storms, its cities crumbling under the weight of her fleet's bombardment. The destruction was total, absolute. And yet, Alex merely tilted his head. I'm supposed to be impressed. Her lips curled slightly. You should be horrified. He rubbed his chin. See, that's where you kind of lost me. Because if you knew anything about humans, you'd know. He motioned vaguely at the projection. This is basically a Tuesday. A flicker of genuine confusion crossed her face. Alex leaned forward slightly, his voice shifting, not mocking, not sarcastic, but something else, something unsettling. Humans wipe out entire species of animals for sport. We invent weapons so powerful that we don't even need them, we just like knowing we could end everything if we wanted to. We've waged wars over everything from territory to religion to petty arguments about whose invisible sky god is better. He leaned back again, grinning. And fun fact, we're the only species in the galaxy that gets bored of peace. She stared at him. For the first time in centuries, she felt something alien creep into her thoughts, not fear, but unease. He shrugged. So yeah, am I scared of you? Not really. But should you be scared of us? He smiled. That's a different question. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her gauntlet. You are lying. Alex laughed. Oh, I wish. The chamber fell into silence. For the first time in her entire reign, she was unsure how to proceed. This human should not exist, and yet here he was, breaking every rule of conquest she had ever known. She deactivated the hologram with a flick of her wrist. The destruction of the planet had shaken civilizations. Entire worlds had surrendered at the mere sight of it. But to this human, it was just another footnote in history. She turned sharply. Return him to his cell. Her voice was carefully controlled. Karev hesitated at the chamber's entrance. Shall we begin the neural destabilization protocols, Supreme One? A standard procedure for prisoners who show resistance, a fate that has left thousands broken, compliant, obedient. She glanced back at Alex. He grinned at her. And for reasons she could not explain, she hesitated. No. Karev blinked. Supreme One. She turned away. He will remain as he is. As she left the chamber, she tried to ignore the voice in the back of her mind, the voice whispering that for the first time in centuries, she had met someone truly dangerous. Alex had been on a lot of ships in his time, cargo freighters that smelled like engine grease and bad decisions, military cruisers that ran on protocol and passive-aggressive memos, even a pleasure yacht once, though that had ended with a bar fight and a small fire. But the warship he was currently on, this was next-level evil overlord nonsense. The corridors were tall and dark, lined with pulsating veins of crimson light that made everything look just a little too ominous. The walls seemed to absorb sound, making every footstep feel like a countdown to something awful. And the guards, they were built like sentient refrigerators with anger issues. And yet, despite all that, Alex couldn't help but notice something strange. The ship didn't feel as unyielding as it should. He could hear the whispers, not loud, not rebellious, just curious. Guards exchanged quick glances as he passed. Engineers in the lower decks slowed their work when they thought no one was looking. Even the AI surveillance probes, normally programmed to be unfeeling sentinels of the Supreme One's will, hovered just a little closer when he walked by. Something was happening, and he wasn't sure if the Supreme One had noticed yet. Back in his cell, Alex leaned against the cold metal wall, arms folded, as he stared at the hovering probe, X-17, or as he preferred to call it, Beep Boop. "So, how's your day been?" he asked, his voice light. "Done any exciting war crimes lately, or just the usual soul-crushing surveillance work?" The probe buzzed in mild irritation. "My function is to monitor detainees. Your status remains unchanged." Yeah, I figured." Alex yawned. "So, be honest, how many people have come in here to ask about me?" X-17's mechanical eye flickered. "Your inquiry is irrelevant." Alex smirked. "Oh, that means at least 3. The probe emitted a soft beep. Alex was right. Because something was happening. He wasn't just some nameless prisoner anymore. He was a curiosity, a disturbance in the well-oiled machine of the Dominion. And in a place ruled by absolute obedience, that was dangerous, not to him, but to her. The Supreme One's frustration mounted. She stood in her personal command chamber, staring at the fleet status reports, but she wasn't seeing them. Her mind kept drifting to him, the human who refused to be afraid. It had been 3 days since she had ordered him back to his cell, and she had expected, no, calculated, that he would eventually crack. Without her direct attention, he would grow restless, uneasy, and desperate. That he would begin to show the first signs of fear. But she had reviewed the surveillance. He wasn't breaking. He was getting comfortable. And worse, so was her crew. She had overheard hushed conversations among her officers. A soldier in the lower decks had even repeated one of his jokes, a mocking remark about the ship's lack of safety railings. Another had asked, half seriously, why they didn't just put plants in the hallways. Small things. Meaningless things. But she had built her empire on order, and order was a fragile thing. She could feel it, a fracture, a shift. It started as a whisper, it always did, and then, if left unchecked, it became something more. Her grip tightened on the armrest of her chair. This had to end. When Alex heard the heavy doors unlock, he wasn't surprised to see who entered. He just sighed. "Oh, hey, Overlord. Checking in to see if I've cracked yet. Hate to disappoint, but I'm still annoyingly intact." She ignored the sarcasm and stepped inside, her cape sweeping across the floor. The energy field behind her hummed menacingly. "You are disrupting my ship." Alex gave her an easy grin. "Ah, come on. That's an exaggeration. At most, I'm a mild inconvenience, like a vending machine that eats your credits." She tilted her head. "You joke, but you fail to see the weight of your actions." She gestured, and the probe, X-17, floated forward, projecting a small data feed. His eyebrows shot up. Hushed conversations. Guards on patrol talking. Engineers on the lower decks pausing to discuss his mockery of fear. It was spreading. She stepped closer. "Your words have reached further than you intended." Alex let out a low whistle. "Ha. I mean, I knew I was charming, but this is impressive." She did not smile. Instead, she took another step forward, her gaze sharp. "You are beginning to undo centuries of structure." He leaned back against the wall. "I mean, maybe your structure wasn't as solid as you thought." She stiffened. That struck deeper than she liked. She had spent lifetimes cultivating fear. Fear kept her empire in check. And yet this one human, this ridiculous, insubordinate creature, was unraveling it with jokes. She took a slow breath. "Tell me," she said at last, her voice measured. "What do you want, human?" Alex blinked. Huh? You mock my rule. You refuse to break. You inspire disorder without lifting a single weapon. Her crimson eyes locked onto his. What is your goal? Alex was quiet for a moment, then he grinned. I don't know. Maybe I just think you could be something more. She froze. Something cold settled in her chest, something she had not felt in centuries. Not fear. Doubt. And for the first time in her long, merciless reign, she had no idea what to do next. The Supreme One had ruled through fear for centuries. She had crushed rebellions, shattered civilizations, and silenced entire species with a single command. Her empire was a machine, vast and unstoppable, fueled by the unyielding certainty that fear was power. And yet, standing in front of this one insufferable human, she could feel it, that machine was starting to crack. Alex Carter didn't have an army. He didn't have weapons. He had jokes. And somehow, impossibly, they were working. The unthinkable choice. The command deck of the warship was silent, not the disciplined militaristic silence of a well-oiled warship, but something else, something unnatural. Doubt. Her highest-ranking warlords stood in formation, awaiting her orders, but she could feel their hesitation. She had seen the reports. Guards questioning orders. Officers pausing before responding with blind obedience. The quiet, uncertain glances exchanged in the halls. Alex's words had spread like a virus, and now her empire, her immaculate empire, had been infected. She turned toward the massive holographic war map, where a single crimson dot blinked aggressively. A rebellion had sparked in the Tarasi sector, small, insignificant. Normally, she would crush it without a second thought. But now, she could feel Alex watching her. Let me guess, his voice cut through the silence. You're about to send the fleet, bomb the hell out of them, and make an example of some poor bastards who just want to live free. Standard evil overlord move, right? She did not respond, because that was exactly what she would have done. Alex leaned against the nearest console, arms crossed. You know, that works until it doesn't. Fear's a hell of a motivator, but it's also a terrible long-term strategy. Her crimson eyes narrowed. You believe you know better than me? He shrugged. I don't know. But I know this, if fear actually worked, you wouldn't be standing here doubting yourself right now. A deadly silence followed. The warlord stiffened, glancing between their Supreme One and the human who spoke to her like she was a person, not a god. Her jaw tightened as she felt the weight of the moment, the weight of centuries of conquest and the weight of a single impossible choice. Finally, she turned to her fleet commander. Hold position. The entire deck froze. Karev, standing rigid at her side, twitched. Supreme One. She exhaled slowly. I said hold position. The words felt foreign in her mouth. Her fleet had never held position. They conquered. They crushed. They destroyed. But for the first time in her entire reign, her fleet would not strike first. And it was because of a single human. Alex let out a low whistle. Ha! Guess the unthinkable finally happened. The evil overlord got a conscience. She shot him a sharp look. I would advise you not to push your luck, human. He grinned. What? Too soon. The revolution began. The galaxy didn't know what to do with peace. The Tarasi rebellion had expected annihilation. They had prepared for a final stand, believing their deaths would serve as a symbol for future resistance. Instead, they were met with silence, no warships, no orbital strikes, and then a single transmission from the Supreme One herself. I will not destroy you. I will not rule you. The Dominion is changing. If you wish to fight, fight. But you will no longer be fighting against me. It was the moment that shattered everything. Aftermath. Alex leaned back in the Supreme One's personal quarters, feet up on a ridiculously expensive table, sipping what he assumed was some kind of alien whiskey. She stood across from him, arms folded, watching him with thinly veiled annoyance. "Just to clarify," she said slowly, "this is not a permanent arrangement." He smirked. "Come on, we make a great team. The reformed overlord and the handsome rogue who helped her change, classic." She pinched the bridge of her nose. "I should have executed you when I had the chance." "But you didn't," he pointed out, grinning. She exhaled sharply. No, she hadn't. Because somehow, this ridiculous, infuriating human had done the impossible. He had changed her. She had built an empire on fear, believing it was the only way. And yet Alex had walked into her worship, cracked a few jokes, and made her question everything. She still didn't fully understand him, but maybe, just maybe, that was okay. Epilogue. A new legend spread quickly. The Supreme One no longer ruled by fear. The warship, once a symbol of death and terror, became something else entirely. It was still the most powerful vessel in the galaxy, but now it protected instead of conquered. And Alex Carter? Well, his legend only grew. Some called him a fool, a reckless anomaly who got lucky. Others called him a revolutionary, the man who laughed in the face of fear. And as for Alex himself? He just called it a Tuesday. As the ship drifted toward a new, uncertain future, the Supreme One glanced at him. "You will be insufferable about this, won't you?" Alex grinned. "Absolutely." And for the first time in centuries, the Supreme One smiled.